everybody. Welcome to Zoom at 8. My name is Julianne Peterson, and I'm your host every Tuesday night for Zoom at 8. You know that we've been doing this for over 4 years. We've closed 200 million just in these rooms, in these nights that we visit. So we've got a lot of people here doing great things. We've got sponsors, insurance brokers. We've got, people that are doing property management. We can help you. So if you don't have a Rolodex of people to do business with, you can start here. You can find your investors, sponsors right here. Okay. So listen, if you're looking at a deal, I would ask for you to give me the opportunity to provide the debt for you. All right. We are specialists in multifamily with Old Capital Lending. We've been doing it for 38 years. That's a long, long time. Some of you are not even 38 years old. So, we want to help you. If you have an opportunity that you're looking at, I'm looking for your T12, your rent roll, the OM, if there is one there, and your underwriting. Any model that you're using, send it along. Okay. A lot of times what will happen is you'll get a sheet from some lender or even a broker says, this is where the debt's gonna come in. Well, that's just high level. And we can all start at high level, but we really need you to be looking, okay, if we're really gonna be moving forward with this deal and you wanna be successful, you need to look at how the lenders are going to be pricing this, be it in interest rate, be it proceeds. So you want to know that before you put your LOI in. In fact, I was just underwriting a deal. Somebody came in $1 million over where it should have been. So be aware. I'm here to help. All right. Tonight is going to be fantastic. A little bit different, but you're going to get so much out of tonight's meeting. We've got an amazing speaker, a live conversation with our industry expert, Stephen Davis. Now, Stephen has been doing this for a long time, 30 years. Some of you are not even 30 in this room, right? So Stephen is, first of all, thank you again, Stephen, for saying yes. We are so excited to have you here. I've been tracking your success, and you've been building a second stream of income to supplement and replace people's income, their earned income, for over 30 years. So at the age of 27, Stephen had bad credit and no money. And so you started investing in real estate like many of us. And you went on to invest in 4,000 units, 4,000 units. That's a lot. And now you are dedicating your life to teaching others how to build wealth and a second stream of income with real estate through your organization, Total Wealth Academy. You live in Houston, which is a little bit hotter than here in San Diego. And you have a podcast, I like to call it a radio show, which has been really wildly successful. I encourage everybody to tune into his Total Wealth Academy. Information is on the website, and you're going to hear more from Stephen tonight about, what you need to have a balanced life. Stephen, welcome to Zoom at 8. How are you?
So, Julie, I'm excited, especially after hearing the introductions of the people. I'm kind of humbled as well, because there are some outstanding individuals that I'm speaking to now. So it's very exciting.
Well, we're glad you're here. First, a couple things, everybody. If you could go up to the right-hand side of your screen, and let's get to speaker view, because we want to know all about Stephen. Give us all of your attention. And I want to make sure that I change my background, because Stephen is going to talk about today about eight parts of a balanced life. And so if you see my screen, let me, you guys can all see that, I think, because I can't see it, but I think you guys can see it. So
I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So you're looking here at an elephant, which is, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about, Stephen, these 8 parts of a balanced life. Why is it important? What have you found over your 30 years with people that you've been working with? Why is it important to have a balanced life?
I think that a lot of people get really distracted with creating their wealth, making money, and they make a singular mistake, which is they think that building wealth will solve all their problems. And it's just not accurate at all. I have more problems now than I did when I was broke. They're different problems, but I have more problems now. Now, the funny thing is I drive a Ferrari to my problems now. So that's a little bit different. But I want to share something with you that struck me. When I was broke, my wife and I have been married for 36 years. We would drive around in a little Ford Festiva. If you don't know what that car is, it is without a doubt 4 wheels, a steering wheel, and that's it. And I would look over at her and she was happy and joyful. We were broke.
Yeah.
Now we drive around in fancy cars and I look over, she's happy and joyful. And she has this way of just enjoying life no matter where she is. And it struck me that I was missing something because I was telling myself, I can't be happy until I have X amount of money. I can't be happy till I have this many doors. And she was happy all the time. So I began studying first Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Then I was turned on to a book by a guy named Deepak Chopra called The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And I noticed throughout those books that there were so many different things that have to go into life if you're going to really be happy. It can't be just fitness. It can't just be marriage. You can't just be rich. You have to have a balance between all of them. And so that was where I decided when I did start a real estate investor club, I was going to make sure that I focused on teaching my students all the parts of a balanced life, not just how to build wealth with real estate.
So when you got into this and you were poor, how was your life? Was it out of balance? And then kind of tell us, how did it get back into balance? Because there's a lot of challenges in recognizing, hey, it takes some time and energy to get it into balance. How was that? What was your life like back then?
My life was out of balance because I was working between 60 and 70 hours a week. And nobody likes the joke I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it. If you're working 70 hours a week, who's romancing your wife? It ain't you. I almost lost my wife. And when they came in and cut my pay, it woke me up. So I couldn't sleep at night. I was watching late night TV and I saw these infomercials on real estate investing, Carlton Sheets, Dave Delgado, Robert Allen, and with what credit cards I had left, because after I got the pay cut, I couldn't make my payments. But I had a few credit cards left and I bought those books and tapes, which dates me. And I started studying them. Within 2 months, I was wholesaling and making more money working 5-10 hours a month than I was working 70. So I bought my life back from corporate America by quitting my job. And then I was able to focus on all the parts of a balanced life: family, fitness, spirituality, romance. And that one was important because I had almost lost my wife. So I had to really focus on the romance side of it. And then it grew from there. But once you start thinking about it, your mind sort of aligns and it starts to say things like, is this going to take me where I want to go? I'll give you an example. Guys used to always ask me out for guys' night out. I've never understood that. I like women. Women are great. They're fun. They smell good. They're beautiful. Men don't. And I was like, okay, does this get me closer to my family? No. Does it get me in shape? No. Does it make me any money? No. I'm not doing it. No, thank you for the guys' night out. Now, that's a simple example, but everything that happened in my life, I would look at the 8 parts of a balanced life and ask, which of these 8 does this benefit? If it didn't benefit them, I'm not going to do it. And it didn't take long till balance became a habit. I think the only thing I had trouble with was fun and recreation, because I actually felt guilty about taking vacations. I felt guilty about taking time off. That one probably took me 5 years before I realized how important fun and recreation is.
Interesting. So let's talk about each of these different values that make up a balanced life. So let me read them off. Family, romance, fitness, fun and recreation, personal growth, spiritual, career, and wealth. So all of those need to be equal, is what you're saying.
Yes. Will you ever achieve that? Probably not. But if you look in the upper to the left, yeah, you're pointing right at it.
Okay,
You'll
perfect.
see there's a chart where you can rate yourself in each of the arenas of a balanced life. And if you look at the bottom, you can see that most people don't have a circle, so their life doesn't roll smoothly. The more equal you get it, the more like a circle it becomes, and your life rolls smoothly. Now, this is just a coincidence that this worked, but it's a good analogy. If you get unbalanced, you don't have a circle. You've got some weird shape, and just imagine rolling down the street on that weird shape. It's not going to work. How do you get unbalanced when it's okay? Let's say that you get diagnosed with a disease. Well, you need to become unbalanced and focus on your health and fitness. But as soon as that's solved, you need to get back to a balanced life. How about with family? Your kid, you find out he's doing drugs. Well, you better get unbalanced and go focus on family for a while, and maybe back off of fun and recreation, back off of career a little bit. So it's okay to be unbalanced at certain times, but the goal is to have an equal number rating in each of the 8 parts, and then your life runs really smooth.
So how do you find where do you find the biggest challenge in this, in your life? And how do you bring it back to balance? For instance, I'm really not concerned, but that's not the right word. I'm curious on the romance, because I think, being married for 36 years, I've been married for 27. It's a long time. You too. It's a long time. How do you breathe in life? And here's the thing. My husband is not into this community. He is not into the real estate world. He's into his career and loves it. I love mine. It takes me away at, going to conferences, working late at night because I'm working on Zoom at 8. How do you bring back that romance when either, you're so focused on this wealth and creating it for your family, for your wife or husband? How do you do that? What are your recommendations? You meet with so many people, Stephen, and you have these conversations. What are your thoughts on how to help people bring that back into focus?
My favorite book on this is The 5 Love Languages. And forgive me, I'll think of his name in a moment. But romance is so important that I've read 3 different books on divorce. Now, I'm a weirdo. If I want to avoid something, I'll go read 3 or 4 books on how it happens so that I can avoid it. And you know that all 3 of them said boredom. Boredom is the #1 reason for divorce. It's not money, it's boredom. And so when you romance your spouse, people need to understand this simple point. Taking your lover to France and making love under the Eiffel Tower, yeah, that's romantic. But so is doing the dishes. So is taking the garbage. So is every little thing that you do. Everybody has a different love language. My wife's happens to be acts of service. If I come home and I cook dinner and I do the dishes and give her time to feel sexy, to feel romantic, it happens. But if she has to do the dishes, has to cook the dinner, has to clean, when does she even have time to regroup, to feel sexy? It's not going to happen. So 1, you have to make it a priority. 2, I think that book, Find Your Lover's Love Language, figure out what they like. Some is physical touch, some is gifts, some is compliments. But I found with my wife, compliments mean nothing to her. I can tell her she's beautiful all day, doesn't matter. But if I do the dishes, all of a sudden she's kissing on me. It's a totally different response. So it does take work, but I would suggest this. You're a beautiful woman. Your husband is going to respond if you go home and want to be romantic, unless, you know, he's sick or something like that. You just find out what he likes and do it. You're also bright, intelligent, funny. You've got the whole package. You just need to deliver it to him and make yourself available.
It can be scary, right? Especially
It can.
talking to, trying to connect with somebody that maybe you haven't connected with in a while. It can be scary, right?
It can be.
So my question to you is, here we are, we're talking about real estate, but we're simply talking about these values and virtues of a balanced life. How does this affect getting into real estate? Kind of walk
man.
us through. How does that work?
This is so easy. I love this question. Slow pitch, because your sex drive determines your success. If you have a low sex drive, it is very unlikely that you're going to push yourself forward to achieve certain goals. If you have a high sex drive, I mean, guys listening to this, why do you want to make money? To woo women. Why do you want to drive a Ferrari? To woo women. I'm not saying a Ferrari woos women, but it does. Everything we do, at least for me, but I think for most people, is because they want romance. When I teach a class, if I do a good job, when I go home, I want some good loving. Every time I passively invest in a new apartment and we close that deal, I want to go home and get some loving. I just think that it's so wonderful to have that connection and the joy and the reward for doing the other things in life. Keeping myself in shape, staying kind, trying to be spiritual, all of it combines to produce a peace between you and your spouse that allows you to be romantic. If those other things aren't there, you're thinking about, well, we don't have money, so you're fighting over money. Yeah. Or you're fighting over fitness, or you're fighting over whatever. Wow, I had no idea this conversation was going this direction. I actually have an R-rated version of this. It's You have to read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
If you've read it, you remember sex transmutation. When you figure out how to take your sex drive and direct it towards building wealth, fitness, everything else, you become almost indefeatable. Undefeatable? I'm not sure.
So I have to know more. I've never heard this. I've never looked at it this way. I've been searching for a way to bring my spouse along with me, because to me, that's sexy.
It is.
If your spouse is not into this, how do you create that space, that desire, that attraction to you saying, hey, I support, hey, my husband supports everything I do. But it still doesn't get him to walk along with me, right? And when we talk about building wealth, to me, it's together. It's a combination of each person bringing their strengths together in a balanced way, right? But many of us don't have that. We don't have a spouse, or our spouse is not interested in it. So how getting balanced in your own life, how do we build wealth, right? How do we attract that person to come in and be more balanced? Does that make sense?
It comes down to, I'll refer to Stephen Covey, seek first to understand, then to be understood. I would think it's kind of like when I get home, I've had things go wrong. I want to talk. I want to tell her. But what I learned was a skill of shut up and ask her about her day and get all of the data, all of the information about what she did that day. And you know what she ends up doing? Asking me about my day. So the first part of your question, I think I would do that. I'd really get into him. I'd get into him and I'd be like, what'd you do today? Did it go okay? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And it's just that attention. And then the law of reciprocity comes into it. And the next thing you know, they feel better. And then they're like, well, wait a minute. What about your day? And then you start to connect more. That doesn't work every time, I'll tell you. But most of the time it does.
Yeah. So what about any of these other areas of fitness? Tell us about what you do for your fitness, and what is your recommendation for others to be in a more balanced life, working towards wealth?
Well, when it comes to, let me give you an example. One time this was when Total Wealth first started. I had about 11 sponsors. We have about 40 sponsors now. I got up and I needed an emergency meeting with all of them because like 3 of them were raising capital at the exact same time. And I was like, you got 3 huge deals. We're going to run into each other. I want a meeting with everybody so this doesn't happen again. We time them. And I called 11 of them, got a hold of 9 of them. 7 of them were at the gym when I called, because I called early in the morning. Now think about that. 7 out of 11 were at the gym. Successful people need energy. If you don't train, your energy levels drop. When a person says, I'm too tired to work out, no, you're tired because you don't work out. The way that this kid is ripped to shreds, I call him a kid because he's 40, I'm 58. He's ripped to shreds. He's got $6 million in the bank. And he goes, you know why I work out? Because it makes everything else easier. I go punish myself at the gym. Then when something goes wrong, he doesn't care. He's so tough, so much energy. And all you have to do is 30 minutes to an hour, 3 to 4 times a week. Remember, if it's 30 minutes, you want to focus on aerobic training. If you can get yourself to a full hour, make sure you do anaerobic weightlifting as well, because muscle tissue atrophies as we grow older. If you don't use it, you will lose it. But energy is everything in this business. If you don't have the energy and something goes wrong, you'll get defeated. And you won't even understand why. Whereas if you've got that energy, you can face the challenges, and fitness is the key to that.
Now, do you recommend in the morning or the afternoon, or
I recommend whatever works for the individual. I'm a morning person because if I don't work out in the morning, by afternoon, I've got distractions. But some people I know that are extremely consistent work out in the afternoon and do what you have fun at. I like weightlifting and stair climbing. So those are the two that I do. Stair climbing for aerobic and weightlifting for anaerobic. But if you like aerobic classes, if you like machines, whatever you like, just get 30 minutes to an hour, 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay. And then how about family? Let's talk about family. What does that look like in being balanced? Is that a time thing? Is it a money thing?
It took a lot of time. It did. I remember they used to say, don't worry about spending a lot of time, just make sure it's quality time. That's a bunch of BS. That did not work. You need a lot of time. And I think family comes down to making sure that your children have the tools to be balanced. You can't control your children. You're an influence. But give them the tools that they need to be balanced. So from the time my kids were 8, I was teaching them everything about building a second stream of income. And I'm proud to say that my daughter has a literally $80,000 a month second stream of income. I'm just as proud of my son because when he graduated college, he had 11 rent houses and about $4,000 a month in passive income. And I was like, it worked. But all I did was take Tony Robbins' work and Stephen Covey's work and just lovingly beat it into their heads.
All right. Well, I mean, whatever works, right? All right.
Right.
Fun recreation. What does that look like?
For me, fun and recreation comes down to a couple of vacations a year. That's enough for me. A week here, a week there. And then romance is extremely fun to me. Spending time with my grandkids. I've got 2 grandkids. I consider my time with them vacation. I really do. Because they make me young again. They make me feel energetic, alive. It's like a drug. Those of you that don't have grandkids yet, you're going to be amazed at how wonderful it is. It reminds you of your youth. It reminds you how wonderful life is. So a couple of vacations a year, lots of romance, and lots of time with my grandkids.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds very balanced. What about personal growth? What have you recommended some of the books. What about some of the other programs that are out there? Whether it be capital raising, whether it be, Tony Robbins, as you mentioned, what's your recommendation for personal growth?
Because of my position as a leader in a real estate investor group, I spend $10,000-$20,000 a year. I bought Grant Cardone's program a couple of years ago, his multifamily program. Did I learn a huge amount from it? No, because I'd done it. But I'll tell you what, I do not regret spending that money because I picked up 2 or 3 attitude points that he had that helped me make more money, that paid way more than the 10 or 20 grand I paid for it. So yes, I love all those programs, but people forget that self-development also includes reading books on romance, on fitness, on fun and recreation. Sometimes the only personal growth they have is how to make more money. And everything they do, every program they buy, how to make more money. Well, what about building your marriage?
Yeah.
You better be reading and studying and listening to books in all the arenas.
That's a great point. Really great point. There's a lot of podcasts out there. Jim Quick, we were just talking about how to read faster, how to
Yeah,
be smarter. I mean, it's
that
amazing.
works. I'm
Yeah,
telling you, it works.
yeah, excellent. What about spiritual? What do you recommend there for folks that may not have it, may look at it as not important for building wealth, for being balanced? How do you view
Well,
that?
I don't think you can build wealth long term if you don't have a little bit of spirituality in you. And I'm not referring to religion at all. If you're
Mhm,
religious, you can include religion and spirituality.
mhm,
But when I talk about spirituality, I'm talking about finding your purpose and how you're here to help and serve other people. Bread for yourself is a material question. Bread for your neighbor is a spiritual one. So it comes down to this simple point. Where does money come from? Other people. How do you get it? By helping and serving them. So if you're going to build wealth, you better focus on helping and serving other people, which is a spiritual event. So it's that simple to me.
It's very profound. I love it. Really great point. I think a lot of people get stuck in the religious part of it. I
Yeah,
got to go to church. I got to spend time in the Bible. I have to spend time, reflecting. But it truly is helping others. I love that. Love one another, right? That's
yeah,
what it's all about. Really good point. Career. So a lot of balancing with career. If you're doing a W-2 and trying to get into real estate, a lot of people jumped into the real estate game 3 years ago in COVID, right? And
yeah.
they started buying and buying and buying and trying to get these acquisition fees without even delivering. I mean,
That's
crazy,
right.
right?
That's right. Dealing with
So,
somebody that did that right now.
I mean, I'm not a fan of that. I understand why people do it, but how do you find balance doing both this wealth creation and spending time focusing on building the wealth and your career? Very challenging, I think,
It is.
especially on your marriage and on your family and trying to keep that. And if again, I think you can be very one center focused. And when you've got a career, that just brings in a whole bunch of other. I mean, for me, I'm in this. I do this all day long, but it's my career, it's my joy,
Yeah.
it's all of that.
Then you hit a home run. The way it
Yeah.
happened for me, I had a bunch of apartments that I was running myself. And this kid came to me and said, why don't you give me some of your money and I'll go buy an apartment and just send you a check. I told him no like 6 times. And finally I said, here's a couple $100,000, get some other people to put up a couple $100,000. We'll put together a syndication, you go manage it. The guy got me a 85% rate of return in 9 months.
Oh,
I immediately sold every one of my apartments and went passive with every dime I had. And that's all I do now is passive investing. And that freed me up to teach. See, when I was running the apartments, I would wake up on Monday, meh. Now I wake up on Monday, I'm like fired up. I love what I do. I want to be helping. I want to be serving, and I know I can do it well. And that is joy. And
mhm,
that is fun. Just like you just described, you've hit a home run.
mhm.
You're right where you should be the way
Yeah,
you're serving people.
yeah, I do. I'm just so thrilled. Now, that brings us to wealth.
Mhm.
You've created total wealth. Um, you want to keep in balance with wealth. You help others create wealth. Tell us a little bit more about how you do that. Did you structure your company? How can you help others within total wealth?
Yeah. What happened was it really is totally different than when I started 5 years ago. Today, what it's ended up, I have picked sponsors top sponsors from around the nation. I got 30 or 40 of them in self-storage, senior living, apartments, strip shopping centers, hotels. I picked the top people, and then people come and take my courses to reach sophisticated level. Even if they're accredited. I even require accredited investors to take the 15 hours of training so that they're sophisticated too. All of my investors are sophisticated, again, even if they're accredited, and they support the sponsors. They put up the money, or most of the money, and build passive income. That allows them, as soon as their passive income meets and exceeds their bills, they can quit that job they're unhappy at and go take a job they are happy at, even if it's got less pay, because their bills are paid. So when I refer to wealth, I'm referring to your second stream of income. That's your wealth. Your career is your earned income. And I got to say this, because I hate retirement. Retirement sucks. Anybody that runs around going, I can't wait to retire. Really? It's the last step before death. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Real retirement sucks. You can only golf so much. You can only fish so much. You can only go to the strip club so much before you start. Why am I here?
Yeah.
It's hollow. It's a hollow feeling.
Yeah.
I have friends who've been retired for 2 years, and they traveled for 2 years.
Yeah.
At the end of 2 years, they came to me and said, I'm going back to work, because it's a hollow, when you're just doing selfish stuff like fishing, golfing, traveling, you lose. It's not what it's cracked up to be at all.
Well, and you're not serving others, right? I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Dalai Lama, he said, the purpose of life is to be happy, but there's a catch. If you're not helping and serving other people, you won't be happy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I love it. So if someone wanted to learn more about total wealth, it sounds like maybe it would be a good fit for them. What are the steps that you take? Because we talk about being in a balanced life, and you want people in your program that are committed to being in a balanced life. How do you put that into your curriculum? How do you work with people that may be out of balance and encourage them to get back into balance? I believe it's part of your program.
Yeah, we have classes on each of the 8 parts. So I lay the information out there for them. Do I personally consult with them on it? Rarely. There will be certain members that will come to me, sometimes in tears, and say, you know, my husband's leaving me, and they'll want to, and I'll consult in certain times. But most of the time, it's just the classes. My main focus is to get people to build that second stream of income so that they have time for the other 8 parts of a balanced life.
That is fantastic. You know, a lot of these education programs are just about being a general partner, right?
Yeah.
Most of them are. So if somebody comes to Total Wealth, are they just bringing their money, or are they also underwriting? Are they also learning how to asset manage? Tell us a little bit about that.
There's a small group of the 40 sponsors we have, probably about 10 of them I've trained myself. And I'm proud to say that they're all doing outstanding. Their first deal, some of them are on their second deals, and they're doing well. So yes, I do that for newbies, but I vet them. I mean, I meet with them.
You're talking about the sponsors.
Yeah, the wannabe sponsors.
Okay.
The wannabe sponsors, there's a certain personality. And there's a bunch of different personalities, but there's some personalities that can't do it. I have a friend, another club put her in an apartment. She's the most timid, individual you've ever met. They put her in an apartment complex with drug dealers and thugs.
Mm.
She's selling after 1 year because she should have never become a sponsor. I look for that. I look for the aggressive, the disciplined, and train them. So the answer is yes, but I look for a certain person. I don't let anybody that walks through the door with money do it.
So the question came up, how do you get the list of top sponsors for each asset class of investment?
What I did was I searched. That's a good question. Most of it was from referrals. One of my members would come to me and go, look, you need to vet this guy. He looks good. Or you need to vet this lady. And what I would do is I would reach out to them and tell them, look, I have a club. We have about $300 million to invest. If you'd like to be a sponsor here, if you'll let me vet you, you could be a sponsor here. And then I do the credit and criminal reports. I look at their past deals. I look at, now this sounds funny, but I look to see if they're balanced. Do they have a family? Do they have kids? Are they working out? I look at all the parts of it. I don't want to invest with somebody who's not balanced, because as soon as something goes wrong, you're going to have trouble with that asset because they're going to be a mess.
Yeah.
So that's how I find them, is mostly by referral.
Okay. So what would someone's expectation look like coming to your program? They come, they do, you have a 3-day, first of all, 3-day, they come?
Well,
right?
There's a 1 day with me where I try to vet who's going to be what. You know, someone may come to me and say, I want to be a sponsor, but most of the people want to be passive investors.
Okay.
And so I try to divide them up in the Saturday class. Then they take 15 hours of online training if they're going to be passive. If they're going to be a sponsor, there's a lot of additional training.
Okay. Okay. If somebody wanted to listen to you and your podcast, your radio show, which has been going on for how many years?
I've been on the air for about 22 years.
22 years. That's a long time. Even longer than the old Capital podcast.
But I'll tell you, oh yeah, the podcast. I was going to say, no, you're 38 years old.
That's right. I'm 38.
Yeah, but ever since I've been in the business, my students have been doing business with you.
That's right. With Old Capital. That's correct. Yeah.
That is
so
correct.
We've closed about $3 to $5 billion with your companies that you've been involved with. So amazing. You know, we've had a great relationship. So let's open it up for anybody in the room. Again, this is a live conversation. You get in the room with the expert. Who has a question? Anybody in the room that we haven't covered? Do you have any questions on the romance part? Because Stephen seems to have this down pat. Anybody? Don't be shy.
I have a question. It's not about romance though.
Okay.
Okay.
Stephen, since you're involved in all the different sectors, multifamily, industrial, office, medical, whatever. I mean, how do you do all the passives? Like, how do you segregate it? Because I know there's a lot of groups out there that are just like multifamily. There's not any other groups that I know of that are just retail or, you know, industrial or whatever. You're doing all of them. So
just about all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're not gonna be happy when I say this, but industrial, I do not have a sponsor in industrial.
Okay.
But I do in self-storage, which you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
John Manis, he is phenomenal. One of the nicest guys you've ever met. He's the type of guy that when you see him make $1 million, you're happy because he deserved it. So what was your question?
So do you teach, I mean, you're teaching them, like Julie, she mentioned something about underwriting. Do you teach how to underwrite these deals? Are your courses geared to, you know, how to find them and then how to underwrite them and do all that? Is that what the ours is, or?
Yeah, I would like for you to email me and let me
Okay.
describe it. It's just
Okay.
steve@totalwealthacademy.com, steve@totalwealthacademy.com.
Okay.
And I'll explain, because I train apartment owners, but I don't train self-storage owners. I
Okay.
just happen to have one of the top self-storage guys in the nation as a sponsor.
Okay.
So if you talk about multifamily, Stephen, in underwriting, you're going to teach them asset management. You're going to teach them how to do due diligence. You're going to step them through all of how to find a deal, vet the deal, get the deal under contract, how to capital raise, how to close, how to asset manage. Is that correct?
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. And it's not just me. The other sponsors, you're not going to believe this when I tell you this, but my other sponsors actually volunteer and help me teach the new sponsors. We have a catastrophe in Corpus Christi right now, and 2 sponsors that have nothing to do with the deal are down there helping the new sponsor recover. It's a really wonderful system. It's amazing. I'm very
you're all
sorry. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, everyone's helping, which is
Yeah.
great. You don't usually get that necessarily in this community. Everyone wants to help, but then money gets involved and, things
Yeah.
happen, right? So you have to be
Yeah.
careful. All right, anybody else? Happy to answer any other questions that you might have. Dorian?
Yeah, I have a question. This is more related to like the balance and towards how having a vision helps defining each area of the balance that you're talking about. And when it comes to wealth, how do you manage to not making it about the money specifically and more directed towards the vision that you have for your life?
Man, that is the question. That was well thought out. One, you've got to have everything written down. Every vision you have, every goal you have has to be written down, because otherwise you'll get distracted by the daily crap that we go through: flat tires, problems with the kids, fight with the spouse, all of this stuff. I think to stay on vision, you've got to have clearly written goals. And are you married or single?
Married.
Okay. Both of you need to have clearly written goals, and some of them need to overlap. That's what's going to make a good marriage. And stay focused on the ones that overlap, and then work on the ones that don't on your own. That will pull you together as a couple. Man, that's a loaded question.
It's a good one.
It is a good one. I think it's reading. It would take me an hour or 2 to answer that question effectively. But I will tell you, as I mentioned before, if you read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I mean devour it, tear it up, dog ear it, write in it, destroy that one, go buy a new one. The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra, anything by Tony Robbins. When those books dovetail, and Jim Rohn, have you heard of Jim Rohn? Yeah, he actually was the mentor of Tony Robbins. He was there before Zig Ziglar, before Tony Robbins. He's the master. I think his philosophy probably answers your question as well as any of them.
Love it.
Thank you.
All right.
You bet.
Anyone else? All right. If we wanted to do some more research on Total Wealth Academy, how would we do that? Would we find it on your website? Would we want to have a conversation with you? Should we just sign up for the one-day event? What's your recommendation, Stephen?
You know, this group of people your skill sets are higher than what I'm normally talking to. So if you said, look, I want to be a passive investor, get my IRA, 401k invested passively, then you would go to totalwealthacademy.com, click on the free sample class. If you want to be a sponsor at Total Wealth Academy and you don't mind me vetting you, email me, steve@totalwealthacademy.com, and let me know. I'm always looking, because we're opening the Dallas office in January, and we'll go from 2,000 to 3,000 members in a matter of a year. So I need more sponsors.
Yeah. Okay.
So those are the two people that I serve the best.
Okay.
If you've got some other idea, feel free to email me. But if I don't feel like I can serve you well, I'll tell you.
That sounds great. Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for the insight, the knowledge, the enthusiasm. You know, it is truly, the energy is what you talk about. It's true.
Yeah.
If you have good energy, if you've got a good attitude, you can make it in this. But keeping a balanced life is so, so important, and appreciate you bringing that up and taking, breaking it down. And, I hope that, one of our listeners here will reach out to you and make their lives better because of what you've shared here and what you can provide for them. So I do thank you.
I totally appreciate it. I have not had an opportunity to speak on this subject other than at the club. So this was truly fun, truly an honor. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.